some people that are really addicted to their cell phone can spend as many as 9 years on their cell phone. They're finding out now. I don't know exactly how you figure that out because cell phones haven't been around that long. But
cell phones been around for a while.
Yeah,
late 80s?
Yeah, something like that.
You had the big briefcase ones first, and then after that, you had the huge handheld ones, the antenna you pull out, right? And then,
but there's two realities. There's the reality that we see walking around, and then there's the reality of a cell phone. Have you noticed that people are just like spending? It says here right on this page. One survey found that the average American will spend 76,500 hours, or almost 9 years of their life, using their mobile device. So anyway, go ahead. I kind of interrupted your flow there.
No, that's fine. So think about the power of TikTok. You know TikTok, right?
Yeah.
So it has the ability in about 15 seconds to allow someone to share a piece of information that they could have shallow knowledge about. And then what that does is that frames the perspective of other people that are on TikTok so that when they take their eyes away from the phone, what they see in the world is what is framed directly by the device itself. Now, half the issue here is that many of the people that produce content or communications that are occurring are communications that happen in an unreal manner. And the ability to spread unreal or untruthful information has happened at a insane propagation. Mm-hmm. Now, in order to check that, you can't put algorithms in place. There's not going to be other technology that comes together, and they've tried it. They've tried it with news websites to say, like, what is most accurate and what is unbiased. The issue here is that you have problems with, 1, biased information, 2, how things are cited, 3, how people understand it, 4, the metaphors people make up for this information itself, and then the ability to share that info, acting like you are intelligent or you've taken the time to actually think about it. That becomes a really dangerous mechanism to create a world where everyone consumed by their devices, because they're high contrast, good at pulling our attention, and have applications which drum up those dopamine responses in the brain. You combine those things together, and what do you have? You have these people walking around in this pseudo belief state that, like, oh, I know what's going on. I see the world. Things are blown out of proportion. I can't really account for things myself. I need to be told what to do. So with that, I don't really have to think. I can just go ahead and scan the world, take a picture, show me the video. I can understand it through that matter without actually going out and experiencing it for myself. So what you find...
Are we having a dysfunction in the limbic system of our brain?
That occurs over time. So they're chemically unbalancing aspects of the brain. Not to say that they were balanced in the first place. But what happens is we're putting so much weight and attention into something that gives a very specific response rather than, I would say, a well-rounded response to reality. And so the distortion of what you're perceiving is going to unbalance your mind. And then what you do is that because that becomes so potent, you can't help but see the rest of your world in the unbalanced nature because you're not actually living in it. You're actually living the world through someone else's eyes, through the eyes of the phone, through the eyes of the device itself. I saw this commercial. It was on last night. I really can't stand commercials. You know, most of them are pharmaceutical commercials. I'm not. Don't get on a tangent. I know you like pharmaceutical stuff. Okay. But I saw this one for Ray-Bans, and Ray-Bans partnered with Meta to create these smart glasses. Great, fantastic. You strap something to my face, and I'm talking to this AI that's scanning the world and feeding information back to me. I don't have to understand anything. I just walk around and ask questions to this thing, and then it tells me what I need to know. And all it's doing is going through an algorithm on the internet with its generative intelligence, amassing things together and putting it in some sort of woke format right back into my ears. And I got this thing strapped to my fucking face all day long. How am I supposed to ever realize things for myself? How am I supposed to test? How am I supposed to know what I'm seeing is actually true or what I'm hearing is accurate? You don't know. And we're doubling down on this tech, but we have no internal mechanisms, Mark, to put these things in place. Our technology has so far exceeded our ability for self-responsible management of our own personalities and consciousness. And so because we're not doing it physically ourselves, technology is then managing it to us. So we are bending and reframing who we are as human beings to succumb or shape ourselves to the technology's design rather than inverting that and designing the technology for the human element. That's the problem. That's where it all lays down.
So is this related to the automatic need to check the phone dozens of times a day? People just have this weird impulse. They can't, like, I can turn my phone off and not even see it for a week.
Sure.
I don't care. But the problem is, can cause problems in society because everyone else, besides me and a few other people that are still like me, are using their phones constantly and depend on it. They expect you to be with your phone on, just ready for their beck and call, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally, I can speak to myself. I sit in this really shitty gray area because I run a company and I have to be on my device all the time. Right.
Yeah.
So a huge function of success in some respects for what I'm trying to do, material success, comes down to speed, right? Speed of communication, speed of action. Now, I have to respond to things. The longer I let them sit, the higher the risk it is for me and a loss of some sort of opportunity that can benefit other people. But I hate the cell phone. I can't stand it.
Oh, really?
I don't even want to look at it. Yeah.
I'm the same way.
I have no interest. I'd rather go outside and talk to the dirt,
Exactly. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that you felt that way because I totally am that way. If I never had to use a cell phone again for the rest of my life, it wouldn't bother me a bit.
Oh, I'd be pumped. I'd be so happy. If you want me, send a fucking carrier pigeon.
You've had even the text message thing. That's a kind of a strange world in itself. Why do they even have text messages? I mean, you can have email. You already have email, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it redundant in a way?
Yeah, I mean, the email is more like sending a letter, and a text message is just
different. It's a little faster.
It's a pager. But here's how we've changed. So, how many times have you got a text message and then you're like, is that person being sassy towards me? Are they being passive aggressive? You don't know because it's a text message. But over time, what have we added to them? Emojis. We're helping ourselves add context to something that shares absolutely zero context. If you think about a text message, it's completely neutral. If you send something, but it can be misread or misconstrued very, very quickly. Especially if you're getting it from a person you don't know their personality, like you haven't met them before in person. You can't tell if the person's being sassy or not. It's impossible to distinguish because all of the elements of when you have a human interaction, you can read them. You can understand what's going on with somebody. You get that little bit of nuanced flavor for who they are. And so maybe something won't offend you. Maybe you have a better understanding of why they respond the way they do. But it's difficult in a text message when it comes from somebody random, right? Or if you've been in a conversation with someone for a bit, like that's why we're adding emojis. We're adding these things to help build context to something that has created, frankly, a lot of problems when it shouldn't have been in the first place.
So what we're talking about is cell phone addiction, which is related also to the fact that we're becoming kind of disoriented to reality, I think.
I don't think they're addicted to the cell phone, Mark.
You don't think so?
No, I think it's a little bit deeper than that.
Explain.
I think we're addicted. When I call your name, Mark, you give me your attention, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
it's the attention you think that they're addicted to.
I'm asking you for something, but it's this weird little hit from the phone saying, "Hey, I need you to check on this."
So the phone is just
it's a medium that
it's a medium like anything.
People are addicted to this this idea of being needed or some sort of importance. Say, for instance, I go to my job. I have no fucking importance. I'm a total, I sweep the floors or whatever. It has no material impact on what's going on at the actual, profits of the company. But when someone hits my phone, they need to talk to me. I'm important, right? They want to communicate with me. I think it's always teasing that little bit of people wanting to feel wanted and also getting access to information because, first of all, you can't read everybody's head. You can't get into their mind, but you can read a YouTube comment, right? You can read a quick 5-second article. Oh, now I'm getting what I want.
It's not the cell phone per se.
No.
That's just technology.
It's filling what people are missing in their regular waking life, right? They're missing these things internally in their brain. They haven't found the balance, so they're filling it with technology.
which must leave them feeling very empty, I would think.
Right. You just become more empty. So you're addicted to the emptiness because the more empty you keep yourself, the more valuable it'll feel every single time that phone dings.
Well, if you learn through the spiritual life to not be empty, we could be neutral without being empty, because empty is kind of a desperation thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, would you elaborate on that? I mean, because I don't really understand the wanting the cell phone to ring. That's what they want, right? They want that.
People want it. They want it. Sometimes they bitch about it, but man, do they love it on the phone. Ooh, do people wait to get back into service and have a text message come in? You know what I mean? Do they wait for that Snapchat to come in for them? All day. All day.
Well, let's hear what Samyasi says. This is Contact Report 5, line 21.
Oh, the cosmic poet she is. She's just so well-spoken. Go ahead.
She talks about the Earth humans. She says, they have indeed already been weakened too much and become addicted to unreality to still be able to recognize and digest honest undiplomacy as truth. So what she's saying is, we can't handle the truth, because to really handle the truth, you have to be able to handle truth that isn't diplomatic. And this has been a learning thing for me, because I'm always very diplomatic. And what they're saying here is just to be down with it, just to be plain with the truth. And what's also interesting is that she says that we've been weakened. Any thoughts coming through your mind at this point?
What happens if you don't use your muscles?
They go away.
What happens if you don't test your consciousness? What happens if you don't pressure test it all the time? What happens when you don't give it resistance? Your thinking becomes weak.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what it is it's a condition of weakness, and then it gets to a point where there's so much, what's the word? So much atrophy.
Atrophy.
Yeah. There's so much atrophy in the mind itself. It can no longer even recognize the truth. So you're at such a point of weakness, you have no resistance to any sort of bullshit that comes your way. So when it becomes diplomatic, when it becomes political, when it becomes biased, you have nothing under your own two legs to stand on to test against. Why? Because the mind is such an atrophied state of weakness that it cannot recognize the reality. So it just takes it in. And it's all presumed reality at that point. We're not doing the work, Mark, to challenge things. People don't even want to get into debates anymore because they're so worried about getting sued because shit's so woke, right? They don't want to offend anybody. Well, fuck that. If you don't do that, you can't test against these ideas. And when someone says something, no, it's just not true. It's not true. You have to tell them, right? And work through it, because what happens? And the Jews are super good at this. Super good. They actually practice debating each other all the time. So they debate the Torah constantly. They'll sit down in groups and just bang, 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 back and forth. And they get used to it. It's a part of their culture, right? It's a really cool part of their culture. But one of these things we don't do is we don't test against all this other stuff. We never do it. People say stuff, all right, cool, sounds good. That must be the truth. Oh, I should take a COVID vaccine. It's going to help me. That should be the truth. Oh, I should wear a seatbelt because that reduces my chances. Or like whatever it might be. I don't care what. They hear a statistic and it's got to be true. That's it. I'm not even going to question it, right? I'm going to do something myself. Oh, every time I do this, it never works out good for me. Well, it must be true for you then. Oh, I can't do math. Okay, fine. Must be true for you. Good luck with that.
Instead of struggling to strive to improve.
Yes. It's a struggle. It's an absolute struggle. You know what I struggled with yesterday? I had this massive dead Choya cactus, right? Thing's brutal. Absolutely brutal. And under Choyas, certain ground vermin live there called pack rats. And these Choya, they get these barbed seeds on them, right, of the cacti, and they spread themselves far and wide on the property. And they're absolutely obnoxious, right? I mean, you get one on your toe, it doesn't feel good, or your hand. I struggled even with a tractor yesterday to get this thing the hell out of the ground. But guess what? When I wanted to be like, all right, forget this. This is a pain in the ass. keep pushing through. Because now I get the benefit of this area where I can now plant in it. It's now the land it's fertile and it can be used over there to put crops down. But again, I had to work through it. I didn't want to do it. The thing's pokey when you look at it, right? Like, hey, like just I don't want to mess around with it. I don't even want to go near it. Things like radioactive. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. So, but again, you have to struggle with things. It's required. Math doesn't come easy. Speaking well does not come easy. Learning new languages, dealing with new relationships with people. It requires the striving, but the natural mechanism you have to remember is that you have to push. You have to persevere. You can't just take everything at face value. You have to test it constantly with your mind. Does this align with what or how I think nature and my universe works? Does it? I don't know. Let me test my ideas against it. Is what they're saying correct? You begin to see these things, and you have to build up this mechanism. You have to get rid of the atrophy of the brain and work it out like you're working at the gym. You have to do it. People don't do it.
Contact Report 5 has really been a good one for me.
How so?
Just pointing out the fact that we're weakened, we're addicted to unreality, and that we can't handle the plain truth.
No.
That's what I see as a simple summary.
What agitates people a lot, Mark? People don't like hearing that the earth is overpopulated.
I know.
People hate it. They're like, oh, God. People don't like they don't like hearing the fact that their climate is changing for the worse. Oh, they don't want to hear it. If you told people they were driving themselves to extinction, they'd be like, no, nonsense. They'd be like, if you tell them the weather patterns are getting worse, they'd be like, no, it's done this for thousands of years. No, it has not. So stupid.
Oh, I can learn a lot about climate. I really don't know that much about it. I admit that. I admit my ignorance in that area. So, any time you want to educate me where that's concerned.
Yeah.
And I think that there are people that are powerful that are even influencing the weather. Because even back in Vietnam, in the Ho Chi Minh Trail, we could cause it to thunderstorm and rain on that Ho Chi Minh Trail. That was the beginning of cloud seeding. Warfare. So I think it's even occurring now. But anyway, so Contact Report 5, very interesting stuff. Also in that Contact Report, it talked about originally the Earth day amounted to 40 hours. And the sun did not rise in the east like it does today originally. And it was the destroyer comet when it came through that gave us the 24-hour day and caused the sun to start coming up in the east. So we're lucky. We probably couldn't have lived through that anyway. We'd probably been killed.
Oh, it would have killed us. Could you imagine me doing a 40-hour day? Could you imagine how efficient I would be?
But you'd be pretty damn exhausted.
Oh, I'd be trash. I'd be trash. I'd be good for one day, sleep for the other 6 of the week.
Exactly.
That means the axis of the Earth would have had to have been completely different.
Yeah.
Definitely slowed. And its spin. Yeah. Isn't it funny how sensitive life is to just 1 degree of change?
Oh, my goodness. So sensitive. So sensitive.
So imagine how much good there could be, Mark, in this world if people stopped believing 1% less. Or even a fraction of a degree. If we spent 1% less time going through bullshit on our cell phones, you'd have 1% more time to put your attention towards things that matter, right?
The part of the problem is we don't understand our own history. Like what we were just talking about with the destroyer comet. I've studied this material before, but when I came across this again, I was blown away again. I forget. It's amazing.
What did you just say?
The Earth day amounted to 40 hours.
No. What did you just say before that? You made a personal comment. You said, I what?
I've been through this material many times before and still reading it again.
Because you're
still blowing me. Yeah.
So how do you expect, Mark, humanity to figure out its true past if people can't figure out what even pissed them off 5 minutes ago?
That's a good point.
Okay? We're so deluded and lost ourselves. It's very hard to get the collective attention of everyone together to regressively go back and analyze ourselves to our origin.
No, continue. That's very interesting. If you can.
Yeah. Super easy. Law of cause and effect, right? People can't figure out what happened 2 causes ago to put us in a specific state. Now, where we are today is from a direct line of cause and effect from something that happened a very, very long time ago. But we have trouble seeing that line of cause and effect because we can't even recognize cause and effect with us in our personal lives, in our own thinking. What would require us, as human beings of this planet, to come together and understand our true history is to collectively come together and study the chain, this causal chain of events that have occurred regressively from where we are today, and then go all the way back and analyze that line and see where they keep leading. Okay? Oh, Islamic fundamentalism. Oh, what happened before that? United States hegemony, going to war, pissing these people off, Saddam, resources, the oil boom. Let's go further back. Let's keep going. If we can continue to go back, we can see where these things have their point of origin. But we don't do it. It's a lot of effort. And if people aren't doing that internally here, we'll never be able to do. If you can't do a self-regression analysis on you, where all your problems and bullshit start from, it's going to be a long time before we figure out what our history is. A long, long time. And inevitably in the future, say for instance, we become real intelligent thousands and thousands of years from now, and we go back in time. Man, oh man, is our world going to be upside down? We're going to have great technology. Say we were having the ability to time travel. We're like, we had it so wrong. And then we're going to be upset with ourselves.
Did we? I think we talked about the Kali Yuga before, didn't we? The age of Kali, the age of darkness, the age of vice and misery, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. The Indians talk about this Kali Yuga as like the lowest level of human development. And there's these cycles that come through, Yeah,
that's great.
They talk about the golden age, the Satya Yuga. So we're coming out of the Kali Yuga, which is like the worst of the worst. So I mean, this is history. We talked about that, didn't we? I think so, or didn't we not?
I don't know, Mark. I don't think so. You and I talk about a lot of shit.
Okay, we didn't get to this yet then.
No.
The Indian, like the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about these different yugas, these different ages.
Yep.
And the humanity is different in each one of these ages. And in the golden age, they say human beings can be 31 feet tall.
I'm 31 feet
unbelievable.
Tall right now.
You're 6'5", which is pretty damn big.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah. Isn't that interesting? So, I guess me and you didn't talk about this. Sometimes we don't get to everything.
No, we can't get to everything. We can't do it all
because we go off on too many tangents.
Yeah, right? Pissing me off about the CIA. The
Dwarpa Yuga, the Kali Yuga, the Treta Yuga, the Satya Yuga.
Have you read the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata?
Just bits and pieces. Okay, have you got all the way through?
Yeah, I've read them. I tore them apart. Right.
Wow.
Because I was interested. How am I supposed to speak to something if you don't?
The flying cities, the cities that are in battles against each other.
Yeah, and the gods using all these special weapons and all that other good stuff. But here's the element to this. Everything, everywhere, at all times, is in a cycle.
Yeah.
All the time. Never stops. Like my watch. Just goes and goes and goes. Till the battery dies and I get another one. These time periods, what are they? They are all these
ages.
But they're probabilities.
Sure.
They're these pressure systems that come in and disperse, come in and disperse, and concentrations in knowledge and then loss of knowledge, concentration and then loss of knowledge. These cycles occur over and over and over. And for us, through the natural processing, plus maybe a little bit of cosmic influence, depending on where we are, because the energy levels are changing, and we are constantly inundated with cosmic electromagnetic energy. And when that increases, I mean, like, it's like sticking your hand in an electrical socket. People are jacked up.
So the energy is what comes from the center of the galaxy, which causes these yugas, because people are developing during this energetic period. Right. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Think about it. You have all this stuff we're doing materially, and then you get these other like high energy influences that are coming from the cosmos. And because we're not being sensitive to these things, like mentally aware, we just see it as like, these patterns, like society growing and developing, fighting, non-fighting, glory, like whatever. But if you just look at it and you see cycles, yes, in these old Vedas, or like these old stories that were occurring, they recognize this, right? The Brahmins, they had a rich history, a lot of good recorded historical context. So over time, you can see these changes in people, in society, along with the changes in the stars and what your position is. And so you can calculate these time periods. And with probably pretty good accuracy, you can see how we move in and out of these phases, because everything is in a phase state change. I've come here to live and I will die. My phase state will change, right? It's day, it's night, it's all this oppositeness. These things have to occur. So yeah, I mean, it seems incredibly reasonable. And as we get up to the year 2028, we're going to have another big phase change, right? Another one that started in the 80s and will carry through to 2028. And then after that, what are we going to do with the energy?
Yeah, this is Contact Report 9. I think Billy talks about some of this too. But in Contact Report 70, I went back through the whole section on NOAA. NOAA was almost 10 feet tall.
One second. Whoa, body. The I don't doubt that.
Amazing, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah.
These giants. NOAA was a giant.
Yeah. I mean, big ship, right? Big person needs a big ship. Yeah, there's this one line I always go back to, and Meier wrote it a while ago. He said, "What is right is reasonable, and what is reasonable is right."
I like that word. Reasonable.
Yeah, it's such a good filter word for so much stuff. Does that seem reasonable? Yeah, actually, it does. It really does. I've seen some pretty big fucking trees on this planet. So if you told me that people also used to grow tall, I'd be like, "Yep, that seems pretty reasonable."
Wow.
Wow.
Our early ancestors had, we call them our ancestors. Would you call the Lyrians our ancestors?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, think about a genetic line in the history that's been left behind in the language we speak, right? Coming from the old word bro, which translates to like loud thunder.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, you go way, way back and you watch how like the Aramaic or Hebraic languages, and then the, the Celtic languages, for instance, how these things developed. It comes from ancestrally the people that were here before.
Do you have a Celtic background?
Do you think I do?
Well, the name.
Yeah. Yeah. So McCaig means son of the philosopher, son of the poet. Comes from the Farquharson clan, Farquharson clan in northeast Scotland. Old further history that goes back to the Picts, which were the people that helped drive out the Romans, past Hadrian's Wall. The people that paint themselves blue and slide down their shields on the mountainsides. Like that. So
was that your ancestors, the blue people?
Yeah, just
they painted themselves. They painted themselves. They were crazy, right?
Yeah, mohawks and shit, running down people on horseback. I'm coming for you,
What was the movie Braveheart?
Yeah, Braveheart. Yeah,
yeah.
Robert the Bruce.
He kind of painted himself blue, at least partially, didn't he?
Partially, yeah. Where do you think it all comes from? Scary. If you had a blue-faced person right now, I'd be like, holy shit, are you from Agartha or Scotland?
Well, the thing of it is, if we don't get a handle on our spiritual life, then we do turn into crazy people, with painting ourselves blue and chasing people down and,
Well, I didn't think that was crazy. I think people are just driving out invaders.
Well, yeah. I mean, there could have been
it's a defense mechanism.
Reasons for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, have you been to Scotland?
No, 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 no.
Beautiful. Unbelievable.
Is it?
Exquisite. Peaceful as
Green?
all hell. So
Everywhere.
green. Gorgeous. You don't want people coming in there stomping around ruining the place, especially if they're coming from Rome where they're, peeing and pooping in the streets and they're having trouble with their bread lines over there. No, get that out of here. I don't want your skirts, your mini skirts over here.
Very interesting that you mentioned Hadrian, because I play chess against the computer and there's different characters you can play against. And one of them they choose is Hadrian. And his wall, I don't know much about him. Was he a Roman?
Yep.
He was, and he thought everything could be solved by building a wall.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
The UK was invaded. The UK was invaded twice. Okay. First by the Romans, second by the Germans. Whatever. They dumped a bunch of bombs and shit on it. The Luftwaffe. But when the Romans had come in there to get rid of the barbarians and expand their outer territories, they ran into the Northern Scottish. Those crazy ass barbaric Celts that were super tall, right, with that Scandinavian blood. And what they wanted to do was continue to push them out, but these people were so difficult to deal with, so combative, so defensive of their land. Hadrian said, fuck it, we're going to build a wall.
Do you think the Celts were directly related to the Lyrians? Tall? Right? Weren't the Lyrians tall?
Yeah.
Lyrans?
Yeah, listen.
Hard to know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to. I can't answer that directly. Show me. Someone pick me up in a fucking ship and go take me there back in time. I'll tell you, and I'll come back here.
Right.
I'd be happy to do it.
Very interesting.
You show me the past, I'll talk about it all day.
So the Lyrians, or the Lyrans, or however you want to say their name, they were traveling in space 22 million years ago.
Yeah. So everybody develops at different times, Mark.
Right.
It's miraculous to us as these stupid little, cow shit stacking peons with our feeble systems that are over here, right?
Right.
But for them, they've developed long before. It makes total sense that they would show up with all this cool technology. Awesome. It doesn't seem unreasonable.
I was telling some of my friends, a couple of friends of mine, on the phone, we were having a conversation. For them, the world has kind of opened up in the past year or so. They would so I was showing them some of Billy's pictures, trying to just kind of introduce them to the material. And they were like, why have I never seen this before? Why? They were just, anyway, so another tangent.
Good photos, aren't they?
They are good photos, but didn't a lot of them have been stolen, correct?
Yeah. Most of them are stolen.
Yeah. Now, you used to be able to buy a book of all of these photos.
I have it.
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Can you still buy it?
Yeah.
I think I need to get that.
Yeah, get your hands on it. If you like picture books.
Yeah, well, I think it's important because it's a great way to introduce it to people, don't you think?
That's the whole point of why the Plejaren showed up with their UFOs. That's nothing to do with the UFOs. They just know we're so hot to trot for flying saucers in the sky that'd be like, oh, this will get their attention so we can talk about creational teachings in the spirit. That's it. That's the whole point in absolute broad simplicity. They showed up in a shiny disc, allowed a couple photos to be taken, gave just enough evidence, and then they said, okay, here's the real juice.
What's interesting is they built these flying ships and they could even go to different space-time structures. And for years, I've been trying to really get my mind wrapped around all these different, like a space-time structure, they say is like a dimension.
That's right.
So, and it's almost like a universe within a universe.
No, they're not within each other.
They're not within each other.
Okay.
They're separate.
They're I have two clocks on a wall.
Okay.
One says Tokyo time. One says United States.
Right.
They're right next to each other. But they operate in two different times, right?
Right.
Okay. But they don't occupy the same space. They couldn't, because if they did, they'd be on the same time, right?
Right.
So they're not within themselves dimensionally. They're just very closely butted up against each other with this
But they're part of our darn universe, right?
Yes,
DERN.
so we have an infinite amount of these things layered, like stacks of paper, like this book. Okay, see this?
Uh-huh.
Now, here's our whole universe right here. If I take this, I have all these different points in time I can jump into. And each one has its own line of cause and effect, own line of probabilities. It essentially acts completely independent of the other dimensions, but lives inside the total universe in some respect.
Wow,
but it's not
Great
dimensions
analogy.
within dimensions. It's just they're stacked like this kind of.
Great analogy. I like that.
Okay.
That makes it, that's the clearest I've ever. So each page could be like a different space-time structure.
That's exactly right. Why?
Wow.
Because creation as a whole birthed itself at one moment, okay? And then with that, all these different universes, okay? So these universes have different levels of energy, like our atomic, subatomic levels, your elementary particles, your quarks, all those things exist in the totality because it was all born at one time, but they operate in different levels with different frequencies of energy, which I would be then, if I had the technology, I can hop in between each of these dimensions. And in between each one is an intradimensional null space. There's nothing there, right? The intra-block. It's this place in between both these things that allows them to come together, but allows for a little bit of a gap space so that they're not running into one another.
Hang on a second. I'm writing down a little note here. Now you're familiar with Alpha Centauri, right?
Yeah, sure. The star.
It's like 4 light years away. It's the closest star. Recently, there's all this stuff from YouTube. I don't know if it's garbage. It probably is, but that James Webb telescope recently detected what looks like electric lights. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm tending to think not, but it's interesting.
Oh, when you think of light bulbs, think about this. What is it to say that people light their planet with the same technology as us? What are the odds?
They said lights. I shouldn't say electric lights. That was just my own addition, which is probably not correct. You're making a good point. Very good point there.
Yeah, I have to sift through things when I hear them, right?
Sure.
I haven't read it. I don't know, but I have these hot studio lamps. The electromagnetism or whatever's running through my LEDs over here is generating this light. I don't know if they generate it the same way. What do I know? I don't have a clue. So if someone says, hey, I see the light over there. All right. Well, how do you see it? What type of light? What frequency band is the thing on? Is it white light, blue light, red light? Black light? I don't know. Did they say that?
No.
You see my point, though?
Clickbait, probably.
Yeah, you see my point.
Yeah. So that's what you're saying. They didn't leave enough information.
No, again, how am I supposed to test against this? How am I supposed to understand if it's reasonable if I don't get everything that comes with it?
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Now, did you just quickly mention something about time and space collapsing, null time, null space? That's when they jump.
So
they do the jump from one system to another.
All right. You have to get somewhere outside of the place you're in. So you got this thing. I love this law. It's called the law of elimination. You have to eliminate yourself from the space you are in to go to somewhere else, right? And when you go to that other place, you have to essentially occupy some sort of area. So you have to eliminate a null area with the occupancy of, say, you and your ship to then go into your next place. Now, if I can increase my mass so much, so much, I'm like this tiny little black hole, I can fold in and break through the energetic dimension I currently live in. Remember I talked about the energy of our dimension? If I have enough mass, I go through it. I have to be so insane, so massive to break through that field. But when I do, I get to that space in between the dimensions. Now, depending on where I want to pop back in, things operate a little differently. You're not saying, oh, I need to go north. I got to go north to get to this dimension. No, this dimension doesn't operate in a north. It just operates on a different timeline. So their instruments would have to be sensitive enough to recognize different probability timelines. I don't know how that would work. It's a little bit beyond me because I've I haven't sat down with them to talk about it. But
Mhm.
you have to leave the space you're in and go to a null space so that in this fresh area, you can choose to navigate
Go
around and then
wherever.
pop back in, change your
Yeah.
mass again and pop back into the next spot. Now, I don't know how long to hang around there. I bet you the null space, you could. I imagine if you can get there, you could probably stay in there.
There's
probably
no
an
time. Really,
Yeah,
right?
I was about to say it's probably an effective place to work because you're not
You
worried
got-
about a clock counting down. You could spend
Right.
centuries in null time and then pop back in. It's like, you won't believe what I just figured out. They're like, bro, you've been gone for 5 seconds. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, I've been gone for 100 years. I've been in null space. What an effective place to get your work done, I would think. It's probably quiet. I
Yeah.
think about this a lot. What is the null space? Is it dark? Is there like a visible light?
I suspect it's dark, but I
See,
couldn't
that's
tell
the
you why.
thing. Like, is it dark? Is
Don't
the
know.
say for instance, I'm sitting in between two dimensions. Dimensions have material matter in them, and they are. I would think they would be emitting some sort of energy, right? A light. So is the area between these two dimensions lit up? I wonder these things all the time. I want to see it. I don't know. I'm curious.
I wonder how far ahead our technology really is. I wonder if we're to the point where we're doing that kind of travel.
No,
You don't think so?
no,
Okay.
we're not. No, I don't think so. You want to know why? It would be unreasonable. Think about this. There's these interesting loops that occur with time travel. Say, for instance, say somewhere on planet Earth, someone has this tech,
Mhm.
right? Are we, this is a pain in the ass to deal with. Have they changed anything in our line of reasoning? Say, for instance, I could go forward in time.
Mhm.
We have that tech. I could see all the trouble we're headed to. Do you think the
Right.
people would want to come back to the Earth?
You probably wouldn't.
No.
A lot of them.
Is there news out there of government officials leaving in droves or ultra rich people? No. I don't think we have it. And if you could go that far in the future, you'd clean yourself up real quick and be like, this looks bad. This looks really, really bad. But one thing I do wonder, say you have human beings, right? We're living our time right now. Now, time it's relative in some respects. What happens if we see a ship in the sky? Is it us from the far, far future visiting ourselves in the past?
Wow.
And the question is what I'm living right now, has that already happened? That's the tough stuff I have to deal with.
It's always happening, right?
It's always happening. And the thing is, time starts from the outside of our universe and makes its way in. So I'm here living in the past. I'm aging into something that's already happened. So which leads me to think, reasonably, if I saw a ship in the sky, it's probably just us, Earth human beings, far, far in the future, coming back to see ourselves in the past again.
Well, Billy's said that much, hasn't he?
Said what?
That a lot of the ships we see are us from the future.
Oh, well, then that makes totally logical sense.
Have you heard him say that?
No. It's funny. I wrote him a letter, and I asked some slightly more nuanced questions. I would say probably more technical on time travel that I was curious about.
Right.
But yeah, it seems totally reasonable to me that we would come back and visit ourselves. I'd want to know. I'd be like, how do we get here and then get lost and then get back here to see this? It's kind of really funny.
It would be interesting to see some of these things that happen in India. We were talking about the Kali Yuga and all that.
You want to talk about the big wars with the gods and the demons and...
I don't know how much of that I'd like to hang around in, but I'd like to, affirm that it was there.
That's the cool part. Test what we've written. Is what we wrote correct? Is how we recorded our history accurate? That's going to be the real beauty of time travel. And then we'll be responsible. And hopefully at that time, we're strong enough in the evolution of our consciousness that we can handle what we're about to see. Because right now, nobody can handle it. I don't think people want to handle the finality that is headed towards us. Scares them.
the finality.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the destruction to the environment and things like that.
Absolutely. That's the one thing I'm talking about. If there is no environment, I cannot live.
You know, oh damn, we're out of time again. Great, Alexander. I appreciate chatting with you always.
Good
Have a
chatting
great
with you,
Sunday.
my friend. Thank you very much. Good luck with the wild animals and the crops.
See you in a couple weeks.
See ya.
Bye-bye.